women are conditioned at a very young age to have our needs not matter, but also to become whoever we need to become in order to get a man, be a good woman. And then we get into relationships and we realize who do I need to be so that this person keeps choosing me, keeps loving me, keeps showing up for me. We put our needs to the side.
Alexi Panos.
Alexi Panos.
Alexi Panos.
Alexi Panos, welcome back to the podcast.
She is a powerhouse in personal growth and transformation.
Through her multimedia, business, and philanthropic platforms, she has inspired thousands to pursue personal fulfillment.
To make personal development mainstream and help women thrive in their relationships and lives.
Our bodies aren't actually prepared to be in the modern day that we live in. Emails, constant phone calls, constant dings and bings and traffic and global news. Stress, stress, stress. Am I safe?
Why does the body feel unsafe? Why is this?
Her co-created methodology, The Bridge, is revolutionizing radical self-development worldwide.
Preston and I almost got divorced 3 years ago, and we literally went through the hardest time in our whole relationship. I didn't like the woman I had become in our relationship because I was trying so hard to be this superwoman in business, this superwoman at home, this superwoman in marriage, and this superwoman with the kids. And I was killing myself trying to be all these versions of myself versus being the version of me I actually was in this chapter of my life. And in that moment, I realized just how much I had put myself, my needs, my desires aside for this idea of what a good woman should be. The literal thing I said to myself is like, what the fuck? I've done everything I'm supposed to do. Let the waves do the wave thing. That's what feelings are meant to do, is wave through us, but we just block them off. And then when they come, we hold on to it. We're like, oh my God, I'm so sad. I've been sad for 10 years. But is that true? Have you actually been sad? Or are you just holding on to the story of sad?
Alexi Panos, welcome back to the podcast. I want to dive right into this. And I want to talk first about, you talk a lot about the exhaustion that people go through when they're people pleasing all the time. And I guess how this really leads to people self-abandoning. And I want to start right there on the whole conversation of people pleasing. Explain to us first, why do people please? Can we start there?
It's a great question. I think surface level, a lot of people think, well, this is a great quality. I'm helping people I love. I'm the most useful people to the people in my life. I'm so kind. I'm so nice, so generous, so friendly. And on the surface, everything looks great. But we start digging underneath and we start to see that people pleasing is actually a survival system from our nervous system. So it's a pattern. And usually when we're younger, something in our environment with our caretakers, our parents, whoever that was, who were primary caregivers for us, we learned that it wasn't safe to be ourselves. We learned that our needs were not welcome. And maybe even that our needs were a burden to the people that we loved. And so we relied on those people for safety. We relied on those people for survival. So, okay, if my needs don't matter, I got to make sure your needs matter. What do you need? Who do I need to be? How do I need to show up to make you happy, to please you, so that I'm safe, so that I receive love? And so this is all unconscious, and then we become adults. And those adults, same patterns. What happens, especially with women, is women are then conditioned at a very young age to have our needs not matter, but also to become whoever we need to become in order to get a man, be a good woman in society, which means a whole host of things which we can dive into. And then we get into relationships and we realize who do I need to be so that this person keeps choosing me, keeps loving me, keeps showing up for me, doesn't betray me, doesn't abandon me. But we put our needs to the side. And so the dark underbelly of people pleasing is that we self-betray, we self-abandon, and that self-betrayal again and again and again erodes our self-trust, it erodes our self-love, and eventually we wake up one day and realize, I don't even know what I want. I don't even know what I need. I don't even know who I am. And so a lot of women wake up in marriages often, like a lot of the women I work with, and they have this realization and they're like, shit, who am I now? I realize that I put everything into my husband, everything into my children, everything into all these people, but I haven't poured into myself. And waking up to the self-abandonment and self-betrayal wound that we've given to ourselves is one of the biggest initiations of a woman's life.
Is this a lot of people are familiar with the attachment styles, anxious. Is this an anxious attachment style, or can someone with these people-pleasing tendencies be sort of any? Like, can you find someone who's secure in a relationship perhaps, but also might have tendencies to please, or have you found one or the other? Or?
Yeah, so attachment styles are great, but they're also pretty fluid. So it's not like you have a fixed attachment style that walks with you your whole life. So if I'm in a relationship with you and you're avoidant, I'm more likely to become anxious, right?
Yeah.
If you're anxious, I'm more likely to become avoidant. It's the polarity thing. So the thing is, people pleasing can show up in any way based on who I'm in a relationship with. So if you're an avoidant and you're someone that's like, hey, I need space, and you're like all up in my grill, I'm going to go, oh, I need to be the cool girl. Oh, no, it's good. It's fine if you don't text me back. It's cool if you don't. It's fine. I'm going to become the cool girl. Not because I actually am okay with you not texting me back, but that's what I think you want from me in order for you to like me. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So what I want to understand is, because it's funny, so a lot of all the study and the work I've done is brain. I've obsessed on brain forever.
Yeah.
And it's like a lot of what you guys do is somatic, which is the body.
Yeah.
And I think actually last time you were on the podcast, I think I asked you, I'm like, what's first, the chicken or the egg? Like, is it brain controlling the nervous system? Because in my world, I'll go, all based off, beliefs and quantum physics. And if we believe it to be true, we'll create it in the body. Right? So if I believe that, like if I made up a story when I was 3 that because I did this, mom doesn't love me, that means this, I would be like, well, you can change it in the mindset. Therefore, it will change how it's shown up or stuck in the body. But if I'm not mistaken, you guys are kind of the opposite, right? Aren't you kind of like, well, it's the body and that's going to affect the mind?
Yeah. So it's the brain-body loop, right? They both affect each other is the honest answer.
Yeah.
The brain sends about 20% of the signals that it affects the body. We've got about 20% power over the body from the brain, right? Which is big.
Yeah.
So mindset can work, but to what extent? So when we look at the body and we look at the nervous system, specifically the social engagement system, which is the ventral vagal system in the front of our bodies, 80% of all influence up to the brain is coming from that system. So if my animal body is not feeling safe with your animal body, it's sending stuff up to the brain. Not safe, not safe, not safe. No matter how many mindset things I have, no matter how many positive affirmations I give myself, I have a system and a body that says I'm not safe. So I can't override or can't outthink how the body feels.
What if it's on a deeper level of like transformational work? Like let's say if someone's doing timeline therapy, hypnotherapy, when it's on a unconscious level.
Yeah, potentially that's where some real cool stuff can happen, because for hypnosis to happen, your body has to go into a regulated state.
True.
In order to be receptive for reprogramming. So that's why that works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell us about, so we can sort of understand it, right? So back up a little bit. You're saying like, so when we're young, we learn that we're not getting our needs met, so we give it to somebody else. What's actually happening in the body? You said it's a survival thing. Like, what's actually happening, and why does the body feel unsafe? Like, why is that such a big thing for us to have this need of being loved and all these things at such a young age? Like, why is this?
Yeah, well, we're animals, right? We're mammals, and the body, the nervous system, is our central command system. And this is the system that it's in charge of everything. I mean, from eating to digestion, to your heartbeat, to swallowing, to sweating, to joy, to feelings, to hormones, to gut, everything. Your nervous system runs the ship. Now, your nervous system is asking one thing: am I safe? If I'm a safe animal in a safe environment out in nature, let's just think of like a deer. If I'm safe, all my systems run as they should. If I'm not safe, my system goes into survival mode and something else switches on. We switch into this different gear in our body. So if I'm in survival mode, my digestion shuts off. My blood rushes to my outer extremities. My muscles tense. Hormones like cortisol shoot and flood into the body to say, hey, we need to be ready to fight, flight, run, or freeze and appease. We got to figure out some way to survive what's coming. Now, we're not out in the wild anymore. We're not running from saber-toothed tigers anymore. But our bodies aren't actually prepared to be in the modern day that we live in. Emails, constant phone calls, constant dings and bings and traffic and global news. Stress, stress, stress. Am I safe? So why this matters is because as children, again, our nervous system is always unconsciously asking one question: am I safe? A lot of us grow up in environments that aren't inherently safe. They're chaotic, they're noisy, we move a lot. You don't feel like you are inherently good or welcome, or you feel like you're a burden or a nuisance to your family. And so you learn how to adapt in order to survive that environment. That looks different for everyone based on their childhood. And so patterns develop from age 0 to 7 when your nervous system is still developing and learning what is safe. So for some people, safety is chaos. For some people, safety is abuse. For some people, safety is the worst possible case scenario that in our heads, it doesn't make sense. But that from 0 to 7 is what your body said, hey, this is what you can expect. And when we can expect it, it is safe, because the body's always going to go to the lowest common denominator for effort.
Yeah. There's the thing that I started looking into a little while ago, and I just remembered until right now. A thing with entrepreneurs, and especially myself, in a weird way, if I'm not busy, if I'm not actually doing stuff, and I'm fully calm, that is chaos for me. And it's sometimes like, it really depends. Like if I've actually penciled in, this is a day off, I'll enjoy the shit out of that day off. But also, funny enough, on my days off, you know what I like to do? Skydive.
Right? That makes a lot of sense.
Right? And it's funny, if everything's sort of settled in the business and everyone's doing things, and if there's a day where I'm like, I thought I had work to do, but unplanned work would just work, and I rock up and everyone's doing the things they need to do and there's no problems, sometimes I can be like, and I'll create problems. Because that feels normal. But then when I'm back in the anxiousness of, good anxiousness, but of like, because I like problems, I like solving them, but it's kind of in a weird way, I want the thing that actually makes me feel kind of uncomfortable. And when I'm not feeling completely stressed or anxious of the things I need to do in my business, and I'm calm, the calmness in itself is anxious, because I'm like, there should be something wrong.
That's right.
What is this? And have you noticed this? Because you work with a lot of entrepreneurs
That's
well.
my pattern too. Like you like literally named my pattern, and that is being stuck in a survival response. And it's crazy because it makes us successful. And this is the thing, like I work with a lot of entrepreneurs and I help them to heal their nervous systems. And the first thing that they really have to face is, well, who am I as an entrepreneur if I have a healed nervous system? Because I don't know how to function without being on all the time.
So where do we discover that one then? Like, where is that? Like, for what purpose did our bodies create that? And because I know a lot of entrepreneurs that are that as well. Like sometimes I can even hug them. I can feel their bodies,
the rigidity in their body
going, right?
Yeah.
So where does that one come from? What's the makeup of that?
So that is growing up in an environment where you learn that the way that you succeed is by being useful, productive, and always being on. So it's high performance, high productivity, high usefulness. You got celebrated for it. You got praised for it. In my case, like I had parents that were really busy, entrepreneurs as well, probably had a very similar system to what we had. And the time that I got all the love and attention was when I achieved. So, I get all the love and attention from mom and dad when I achieve. I'm just going to keep achieving for love.
So you know what's funny about that then? Because I think I became an achiever because it's what I didn't get. And see, my parents never really go out there and started businesses. They did their best to raise us. And I used to look at them kind of somewhat struggle, be like, we can't afford that or whatever. And I think I looked at that going, I don't want to be like that.
Yeah.
And even when I'd play sports or do things, at least I'm aware of it now. I don't care about the praise. It doesn't really bother me. But I think unconsciously at some part of the journey, I was probably like wanting some sort of praise to achieve. But every time I would try to amount myself to something high, it was not taken away from me, but kind of walls were kind of put up of like, how do I say without, I'm not trashing my parents, but like, let's say for example, playing a sport or something. It's like, I want to keep going with this. Oh, well, once we sort of got older, we had to get into different teams instead of supporting me to be like, hey, let's work on your craft so you can get better at this. It's like, well, you're just not that talented. So why don't we pick a different sport? It's like, okay, I'll get into boxing.
Okay.
Right?
So there's a little element of proving there as well.
I think probably.
Yeah, like I'm going to prove that I can. I'm going to prove that I can go as far as I want to go with this. I'm going to prove that I am great, maybe the best at this, right? There's that proving element. And again, everybody's wounds show up differently based on the childhood you got, whether you went towards the thing or away from and opposite and rebelled against the thing, which sounds like you had that pattern. But we still have the same pattern.
Yeah.
A full plate for me feels like,
right.
Spaciousness for me, not as much anymore because I'm healing my nervous system, but spaciousness used to feel like so much tension in space. But yet when I was in the fullness, oh man, I can't wait to just have space. And that was the promise, right? This elusive idea of the carrot in front of my face. But once I got there, it was never enough. It was never enough. I always needed more. The plate just, I need to clear my plate. It's like, no, just put more on the plate. Get a bigger plate, put more on the plate.
Yeah, that's how I feel. I'm like, we'll start another business.
Yeah, exactly.
We've done that one. Let's go more.
Literally,
like,
serial entrepreneur.
Yeah, give us another 2 years, get this one up to plate, up to date, and then I can relax.
Yep. That was literally me. I'll launch a plane, get it up in the air, get it coasting to its destination, launch another one.
So what point did you realize that you were assigned to people please?
So people pleasing for me, I knew it in like such a surface level for a good portion of my early personal development years. Like I was like, oh yeah, I'm working with it, I'm aware of it, but I didn't really get to like the deep, dark roots of it until Preston and I almost got divorced 3 years ago. And we literally went through the hardest time in our whole relationship and almost considered separating. And in that moment, I realized just how much I had put myself, my needs, my desires aside for this idea of what a good woman should be. For this idea of a good woman is a boss babe, entrepreneur, successful, hustler, $1 million businesses, and then some. Also, she cooks, she cleans, she takes care of the house, she decorates the house, she refurbishes the house, she does all, and she's like super mom. So I'm playing all these roles, but at the cost of my happiness, right? I'm just trying to be this type of woman. And when I almost lost the relationship, the literal thing I said to myself is like, what the fuck? I've done everything I'm supposed to do. I've done everything right. And that was my sign to go, what does that even mean? Like, what paradigm am I living into that I'm actually feeling annoyed and frustrated and resentful because I did everything right and I'm not getting the result I wanted, right? And what I realized was I didn't like the woman I had become in our relationship because I was trying so hard to be this superwoman in business, this superwoman at home, this superwoman in marriage, and this superwoman with the kids. And I was killing myself trying to be all these versions of myself versus being the version of me I actually was in this chapter of my life. And that's always evolving and always unfolding.
So who were you not being that you become aware of?
Yeah, so I wasn't asking for help because a superwoman doesn't ask for help. She does it all, and she does it with a smile, right? She does it so happy. She's so happy to take care of it all. And I took pride in people going like, wow, you handle so much. I do. Badge of honor, right? And so I wasn't even enrolling my husband to be able to help me. He wants to help me. He wanted to. But we created this dynamic where does he fit in? Where does he fit in a world where I'm handling everything? He doesn't fit in there. And so that creates a whole dynamic in a male-female relationship. A man loves to feel useful to his woman. He loves it. It's like lifeblood to a man, a healthy man, right? He wants to serve. He wants to show up. So I create this dynamic where there's no space for him to serve. There's no space for him to show up with me. He can serve people in the world. He can serve all of our clients, but there's no room for him to serve me because I got it handled.
It's very fascinating. This I said before we got recording, we had John Gray on, and we had a big chat about. So I don't know if you've seen what he's sort of teaching now, but more so what he teaches now is more so on a hormonal level, because through his work when he wrote Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, it was like the best-selling relationship book, I think still in the world today.
Wow,
but that was,
still?
Yeah.
Wow.
That was in those 80s. We're in 24 now, probably in the 80s.
I think you're right, yeah.
And what he taught back then, in the traditional sense, isn't really a thing anymore, especially with the the feminist movement and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And then I think there's just a lot of dynamics that have changed. Like one, for example, I can remember growing up, our family lived off just dad's salary, and that was enough.
And it's not anymore.
That's not enough anymore. You know, so it's a combination of two people do have to make an income into the house, but also there's a lot of society pressure that women can now go, well, you've been suppressed so long, stand up and do it. And the big thing he talks about is because of that, it's masculine energy to get shit done.
Yeah.
And he's like, it increases more testosterone in the body.
Yeah.
And then as a result, it's throwing the dynamic in a relationship off where the man's increasing more estrogen. And
that's environmental factors though as well, which we could get into. But
yeah.
There's a lot of hormones in our water supply.
Oh yeah.
Which is a whole other thing. Yeah.
But it made me look at it in a different way of just how it's always been a game of in a relationship, both playing the role, but he broke it down like a hormonal thing.
Yeah.
How like, he's like, so if you do more of these things for Simona, my partner, it's going to boost her her estrogen naturally. So he's like, if you want her to like lower her, not her guard, but you know, become more, surrender more, then try to do more of these things. And one of the things he really said for me, he's like, women really just want you to do things for them that they can actually do themselves, but do it without them having to ask.
100%.
And just these little tiny things will boost estrogen in a woman's body, and that will make them more like, slip back into that dynamic. So
you want to know why that is?
Yeah, go.
So going into this, which is great, it's all based and rooted in the nervous system. So when a woman feels safe and she's like, oh, my man has me, he's got us, he's taking care of the finances, even if I'm contributing half, right? But he's taking care of the trash and I don't have to ask. I don't have to be on his ass all the time. I feel safe enough to relax.
Yeah.
When I'm in a safe body, my hormones turn on in the way they're supposed to function for a woman. So estrogen levels raise. I have healthy testosterone, which helps my libido. Cortisol levels go down. Oxytocin, serotonin go up. And I'm in a more positive hormonal state where I'm actually wanting to connect more versus pushing you away because I'm in stress response, survival mode. And I would say 95% of all women in today's world are stuck in survival mode because feminist movement's amazing for a lot of things. Yes, we get to work. Yes, we get to have equal rights. Yes, there's still a lot of work to do. And we are still in this very gray area right now where women have stepped into a man's world and said, hey, we can too. And yet we're still holding the same responsibilities we were holding almost 100% that we were prior to the feminist movement. So we're doing this and all this. And so now men are really having to learn, oh, I've got to actually shift into this new dynamic as well to create equality in the home. And it's not like 50-50, but finding what works for you as partners. And it's hard. It's hard. We're all learning how to be in this brand new dynamic where women are playing both roles, masculine and feminine, and we're damn good at it too, right? And now men are learning how to be in their healthy feminine and healthy masculine as well.
Yeah. So you and Preston have been together a while. How old's your oldest kid now?
Almost 7.
That is wild.
Crazy.
You guys have built businesses together. Like your whole life is like,
it's very intertwined.
Preston and Alexi is like, you know what I mean? So for the people listening then, so a few years ago, you guys contemplating getting divorced.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through, I guess, what was the first thing that sort of, where you guys came to the party being like, is this a thing we're going to do?
Yeah.
And I want to understand your guys' thinking process behind choosing to stay and what you guys have actually done. Because we're also living in a world where divorce has never been higher.
Right.
And there's a lot of, like, there's just social media, I think, has really done a lot to us as well.
Yeah.
We can get on social media. There's actually a study they did. They think money doesn't buy happiness, all this stuff. What they found was the number one thing that actually created happiness was the lack of choices.
Yeah.
That's why you go to some of the poorest countries in the world where their perception of choice is actually smaller and they're so happy.
Limited window.
Yeah, and you look at here in Australia or in the US, when you have this abundant thinking, you get online, you see people on private jets with all these women.
I should have a private jet.
Yeah, and you're like, oh shit, I don't have that. And it creates this unhappiness.
Right.
And I think that's also what's creating more options in the world, because 20 years ago you couldn't get on social media and have this perception of women or men giving you attention, but now it's there, whether we're aware of that or not, you know. So I kind of want to understand what made you guys sort of come to the party and say, hey, this conversation's on the table. And then what was your thinking process to get through that? Because obviously that was years ago, and now you guys are still here. So
and thriving, like better than ever.
5th kid on the way.
It's funny, we were just talking about, you're the like second person who's asked us that today, so God, if you're listening, no more children.
I have a family. There's 4 of us in the family. And I'm like, Mom,
4
I'm glad you didn't go more.
Good with 4. 4 is a lot. On that note, it was our 4th child. Like we had planned to have Preston get a vasectomy after our twins, because they're like, all right, 3 is good. We got 3 very young kids all in 2 years. Let's stop. And so he sets the appointment to get the vasectomy. Within the time between then and his appointment, we got pregnant with our 4th. And so there was just a lot happening at that time. We just left California. We just left LA, moved to Texas. We were building up our real estate portfolio, launched 2 new businesses, creating curriculum for those businesses. Like, we were just full plate, putting more on it. Like, bigger plate, putting more on it. And then to add a 4th child to that, when we had 3 little kids at the same time, moving state, buying houses, renovating houses, it was everything all at once, and we couldn't ignore the stuff that we had been sweeping under the rug during that very busy season of a couple years. Like, it was like 4 years of just nonstop. And so we just kept sweeping. Like, okay, we'll get to it. Like, we'll talk about the relational stuff later. Like, we just got to make it through this thing, right? But there was always another thing, because we kept adding more and more and more. And sure enough, the pile under that rug got so big that we were like, okay, this is an entire room now. Like, we got to look at this, right? And honestly, it was like a culmination of a bunch of things where I wasn't happy, he wasn't happy, and it was like, enough is enough. Like, we actually don't feel good in our bodies, and we love our life. Like, we love our kids. We love everything we've built together. Like, couldn't we just co-parent really well together and like co-work together and still like high five, you're awesome, but let's not like do the romantic thing anymore? And we really looked at that and said, yeah, we probably could. We probably could, right? And so we gave ourselves 90 days, and we said, let's like work on sovereignty, because we also realized like we had this like low level enmeshment going on and codependency going on, and it's high functioning codependency.
Yeah, because you guys really came up together kind of in a way. Like, you were quite successful before, but in this space you guys crushed it together.
We built everything together, and we both had success in other ways, but we built success in this together, and that's what we're most known for, is doing this together, right? And so while that's beautiful, it created a lot of high functioning codependency, right? And so we recognized that there was so much wrapped up from my world, right? So much wrapped up in, if I can keep Preston happy, right? This is unconscious. If I can keep him happy, then I'm good. And he was, if I can keep her happy, then I'm good, because so much was playing together. And if you ever have that conversation, there's some level of codependency going on. And when you have codependency, you're dropping yourself in that process. So this was a big moment, because Preston and I both realized how much we were both people pleasing, and how much we don't do it anywhere else in our life except with each other. And it was like, you're my number one form of safety. If I can keep you happy, then I'm safe. Our family's safe. Our kids are safe. Our businesses are safe. There was so much riding on it, right? And what that caused was such a high level of self-betrayal. There were so many conversations that neither of us had, because we didn't want to stir the pot. There were so many things that we swept under the rug because it wasn't the right time, or was it really that important? Did we really have to talk about it? So we just kept, year after year, month after month, week after week, pushing ourselves, our needs, our stories, our desires aside. And then at one point, we're like, do we even know who each other is anymore and who we are? And we didn't, because we had been playing this version of who we thought each other wanted us to be. But this was such a breakthrough moment, because we're like, wait, you feel the same way? Okay, we got this. This could work, because if you feel that way and I feel that way, it's not your fault. It's not my fault. It's our fault for abandoning ourselves in this dynamic. We were never taught what a healthy relationship looks like. You know, my parents have both been married multiple times and divorced multiple times. Same with his parents. So we're figuring this out along the way, and we have so much at stake to actually figure it out for. What would it look like if we actually spent 3 months still living together, still working together, still doing everything we do, but focusing strictly on who am I now in this chapter of my life?
As an individual.
As an individual, what do I want? And then we'll come back together and say, do I choose you now? And it was really powerful. We did a whole burial ceremony of our first marriage. Like we went to Burning Man and took our rings and we buried it at temple, and we blessed all the lessons from the marriage. We blessed that version of ourselves. We blessed everything we created in that version of our marriage, and we put it in the ground and said, okay, like for this to work, we have to start anew. We have to totally get to know each other from this brand new way of being. And it was a paradox because we don't have these tools as people, right? We have them as individuals, and we're so successful as individuals in life, but in relationship is where all your shit gets tested. Everything will get tested in your most intimate relationships.
Yeah, I would say get into an intimate relationship and build a business. Fuck all other personal development.
Yes. And then have kids. And then have 4 kids in 4 years and see what happens. Like, I mean, you want to talk about, and it's so funny because Preston and I are such like high capacity people, right? We're like, we want the most out of life. We want to squeeze the juice. And God's spirit is like, cool, we're going to have you guys get married, start all these businesses together, have 4 kids in 4 years, move, build a real estate portfolio, build an investment portfolio. It's like, all right, let's see. Squeeze the juice out of that, you know? And it's so true, man. We got handed our ass in the most beautiful way. And it has transformed. We got new rings, you know, new proposal.
You did a new wedding?
Not yet. We're working on that. We're working
nice.
on that. So we're probably going to do it at our ranch house we have in Texas. Yeah. But it just feels so good. I'm like, wow, a relationship. If you actually stay with the same person, but find who they are anew at this stage of life and find yourself anew at this stage of life, you can have a whole new relationship with the same person, but a brand new experience of life and love and everything. And that's what it's been.
It makes sense though, because especially if you're on this growth journey, especially people at the speed that you guys would be doing it, you shouldn't be the same person 12 months from now. No. 24 months from now. It's
a month from now.
Completely different people. But you mentioned before self-betrayal.
Yeah.
Break this down for me. What is self-betrayal? Explain for a 4th grader.
What's up, Dream Nation? Have you ever wondered how far ahead your life would have already been if you had got access to this type of content at a younger age? Look, this is why I need your help. I'm trying to build the #1 personal development platform out there to teach you guys the tips, tricks, and attitude of what it takes to live your dream life, and to bring the type of education that we all wish we had in school. This show only grows by word of mouth and new subscribers, so it would mean the world to me if you could smash that subscribe button right now, leave us a 5-star written review, or drop a comment below and share this episode with a friend. I would be forever grateful. All right, now let's get back into this episode.
Yeah, for a 4th grader. So self-betrayal is just like, if you think of, most of us have this idea of, I have a fear of being betrayed by someone. Right. So if I'm in a relationship and they betray me, they cheat on me, they lie to me, they steal from me, they withhold from me, or they leave me, right? Betrayal. Now, self-betrayal is we're in a relationship with ourselves. If I, personality self, Alexi, betray true self, Alexi, for the sake of getting my personality met, my ego met, the part of me that wants to feel safe, feel loved, feel valued, feel worthy, feel welcomed by somebody. If I betray my true self for the ego personality self, that is self-betrayal. The true self has needs, desires, wants, yearnings, values, beliefs, pillars of this is who I am, this is how I want to live, this is what's right and not right for me. Right? And that's different for everybody. But the ego self has a whole different agenda. The ego self, again, is often the identity that's moving from a nervous system that says, I'm not safe. And the more unsafe we are, the more this ego self is going to go, I will do whatever it takes to find safety, even if it means betraying this true self over here. So we'll go against our values. We'll go against, we'll date people that we know aren't good for us, right? We'll stay up later and work really hard, even though our body's going, I'm so tired. Can you please stop and slow down? We're like, no, I must get 3 more things written, right?
So just so we can get the perceived safety for that
100%.
bigger self.
All for perceived safety, whatever that looks like, whether it comes in a relationship, whether it comes from work, whether it comes for a lot of people, it's like, once I get X amount of money, then I'll feel Y. If you're saying that statement, if I get X, then I'll feel Y, in your relationships, with money, with success, with your business, with your kids, with your family members, you are playing a game of I am not safe. And you think that this thing that you're after is going to create it for you.
How do we know the difference between, like, because this is the thing let's talk about discipline and then self-love, I guess, if there's another word for it. It's like, let's say, because I was having this conversation with somebody at my event on the weekend.
Yeah.
And our nights go late.
Yeah.
Like 1 o'clock finishes sometimes. And on the first night, one of the ladies told me on day 1, she's like, I want to start my business. Last time I did it, our first setback, I quit because I just sort of gave up because I thought it was hard. And she went home early on day 1. So the next day, of course, I brought it into the whole room and I'm like, you went home early? She's like, I was over it. Like I was tired, blah, blah, excuses.
Yeah.
And then I just kept pushing her for about an hour in the room.
Yeah.
And I got to sort of, I guess, accept the fact that if she wants something big enough, that bad, she's going to have to push past the point where it doesn't feel good anymore.
Of comfort.
Yes.
Yes.
And this is and I tiptoe on teaching this because, like, I'll tell you how I do it, but that doesn't mean, like, I'm a sicko.
Yeah.
I will push myself hard.
Yeah.
If I need to.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you should.
Right.
Because I know my limit, I don't know yours.
Yeah.
So how do we find the difference, I guess, between pure discipline? Because you look at anyone who's achieved greatness.
Discipline.
They've done a lot of hard shit.
Yeah. But
way
what's
past,
hard? And this is the question. So I love that you're bringing
Do you know Ned Brockman?
I don't think so.
So you should check. So he's an Australian guy. He ran across Perth to Sydney.
Oh, amazing.
Right?
Oh my gosh.
Crazy.
Wow.
He did it in, I can't remember, maybe a month or something. It was like over a marathon a day. Hectic. Wow. And just this week, he just did 1,000 miles, I think nonstop, but I don't know how he would have done it. But it was intense, right?
Wow.
So you look at somebody like him.
Yeah.
Big mission, raising money for homelessness. He's bleeding from his face, bleeding from his legs.
Bleeding from everywhere.
He's dying, right? Yeah. But you look at this guy, and now you could look on 2 hands and say that requires a lot of discipline to do epic shit in the world.
Yeah.
Also, he's really destroyed himself in the process.
Yeah.
So how do we find the balance and understand when we're going, no, you have to keep going because this is important, this is the discipline, but then also, but care for yourself.
Yeah.
Because I find there's a rise of pussies in the world now as well.
Yeah.
There's a rise of people that, my body doesn't feel safe. That's why I'm going to stay in this shit job forever. It's like, bro, you have to push past. Yeah. It's going to be scary.
But so this is the difference, and I think the difference is discipline requires you getting uncomfortable, right? Comfort kills people, right? Comfort, to me, for a lot of people, is fast food, right? Comfort is sleeping in beyond what your body actually needs to feel fully rested. Most people who don't have what they want live a very comfortable life.
Yeah.
They're not stretching themselves outside of their comfort zone, and that's where all growth happens. So I think people who achieve great things achieve them because they're willing to step into discomfort and go, stretch me. I want to stretch my capacity. If you want more in life, you've got to be able to hold more. You have to have a bigger capacity to hold more of what you're unwilling or unable to hold right now. Stretching my capacity requires me getting uncomfortable. Now, here's the piece, right? So I hustle. I still hustle. I love to hustle, right? It's part of my DNA. I'm like you. I'm like, I can fucking go, right? But where am I doing it from? Am I doing it from survival of thinking, if I get more money, it's going to make me feel better about myself? If I get 1,000 more followers or whatever it is, right? Some arbitrary number or idea. If I think that's going to solve a problem within me, I'm fooling myself. So if I'm doing it from my true self and the self that's like, you have to do this. Like I have a book in me that has to be written. I don't want to write a book. I don't want to write a book. It takes a long time to write a book.
I've started writing. It sucks.
I love writing, but it's the worst, right?
Yeah.
It's like, especially when you care about what you're writing, you want to like put everything into it. But I have to write this book. So my true self is like, hey, clear your schedule. Q1 2025, you're writing a book, babe. And I'm like, I don't want to. Comfort in me would say, no, I'll just keep doing all the stuff I'm doing. And the true self is like, no, you're going to hustle and write this book. This book has to come through.
So it's more so knowing where it's coming from. Because like, let's say, if I work hard as well, but the first thing that came to mind was it's fun.
Yeah.
I even had this conversation with my partner a while ago because we sort of had an agreement that Sunday is our proper day off. Where I did 6 days with not a day off ever.
Yeah.
And then it became a problem where I was like, I literally thought I wasn't allowed to have a day off. So it was a problem. Then I started taking time off and I started making more money and I was like, I like this.
Yeah.
And but now what I found the balance was I actually love working.
Yeah.
And I like to work in sprints.
Yes.
So I will do 6 weeks. I'm in a hectic sprint right now.
Yeah.
But then I'll go to Bali and hang out for a week.
Yes.
But then we're going to Lapland for Christmas.
Yes.
And the next year will be crazy again. And I'll work in sprints of like 8-week bursts or so.
Yeah.
But the first thing that really, so the conversation I had with Simona was, I'm like, you know what? Some Sundays we have off just because we say we have off.
Yeah.
I'm fucking bored.
Yeah.
I'm like, I want to work.
Yeah.
Because it brings me joy.
Yes.
And I will work on Sundays if I feel like working.
Yeah. And if it brings you joy, and here's
I
the
like
thing,
getting
at
shit
what
done.
cost, right? Everything has a cost. So if I write this book at the cost of my kids, I'm not going to write this book at the cost of my kids. I might write this book at the cost of a current program that I'm running and put that on hold for a while. Everything has a cost. You got to figure out if the cost is worth paying for.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm curious to know, what do you think when we look at David Goggins? Someone who does literally hard shit for a living.
Yeah.
Because someone asked me about him the other day. We're on the topic of discipline. I'm like, you know what? If I was to have a conversation with him, I'd probably like to try to get underneath the surface. I wouldn't mind betting there's probably a lot of unresolved trauma there. He's probably killed a lot of people. And so I'm just curious to know, from your perspective, all the things you teach from the nervous system and the body, what do you think? Do you think this is a man who's a high performance individual who just loves crushing it and push himself to limits? Or do you think there's something else under there perhaps that he's running away from?
Yeah, I don't know him, so I don't know personally, but the average would say that it's probably a little bit of both, right? There's likely that something happened in his childhood that created a system that's like, I got to push hard to win at life. Maybe because nobody else is going to do it for me, so I got to be the best. I got to push hard. I got to find my edge to win. Maybe that's it. Maybe there is trauma in there. Maybe there is, I'm running away from something and putting all this energy that my body's trying to mobilize into this, into this, into this, right? Like you going skydiving on a day off, you need to feel that burst of energy. That's part of what your system likes, right? That's comfortable for your system.
Yeah.
Now, there's no right or wrong here. It's just, is it working for you, right? I could have kept going in my go, 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 always on mode, but my body actually said, I can't do this anymore, and went into a functional freeze state where it's called burnout. Like that's what we call it societally. So my body was like, no, we're done doing that. And so I had to figure out a different way. Some people burn that way all the way to the end and they're fine. So again, you've got to ask yourself at what cost. But if your body is always in a survival state, your functionality isn't working as it should as a whole integral being, right? So the thing I've noticed, I'm taking more time off, making more money than I've ever made. I have more time with my kids, more present. My wise self has come online in such a way that there was no space for, because I have more time to think and ponder and contemplate. So I'm tapping into deeper aspects of the quantum me than I was able to when I was just on all the time. So it just depends. If it's working for David, keep doing it. If it's not, maybe take a look at it.
Yeah, I love it. So you mentioned before about, these things will play out in women's lives in relationships.
Yeah.
For other people you've coached, what has been some more popular patterns than you'd probably like to admit come out that women that are listening to this, watching this, can really start to absorb or become aware of in themselves? So how do these wounds kind of play out traditionally for women in a relationship? Like, are there signals that, do you get what I'm asking?
I think so. So like, what are the major things that women don't recognize they're doing in relationship that creates disharmony?
Common patterns that would play out, that is the manifestation of having the wound of, I'm betraying myself, or I'm being a people pleaser, or I didn't get when I was younger.
Yeah.
All these things. Yeah.
So a lot of patterns, I mean, it's self-betrayal. It looks a million different ways, right? And again, women don't often categorize. Okay, they'll say, I have an abandonment wound. I've got a betrayal wound. I've got a fear of betrayal and abandonment. And we'll go into relationship looking for our partners. Okay, we're looking at them. Are they safe? Are they going to lie to me? And they'll check their phones, and they'll dress up a certain way, and they'll show up a certain way, and they'll have sex a certain way in order to get this man not to betray or abandon them. But all of this is self-abandonment, self-betrayal. And so they're perpetuating the same wound that they're waiting to come from the man. They don't realize that they're making it worse. So however it shows up in women, and it shows up in so many different ways, the thing I want women to get is that you are perpetuating the very thing you're afraid will happen in relationship. You're doing it to yourself. And this is the thing that if women could catch themselves and really ask, and it's a hard question to ask, but you got to take that hard look in the mirror. Where am I actually betraying what I know to be true for me? Maybe you said yes when you meant no. Maybe you went home with that guy when you knew you shouldn't. Maybe you said yes to that job when you knew that that wasn't the right thing. Maybe you're so nice to these people who you talk shit about behind their back. Like, where are you setting up a whole world that's not even real so that you have this false sense of safety? The more you do that, the more you stack and make that wound of self-betrayal and abandonment bigger, the more you're going to attract people that reflect that in your life, so that you have to look at yourself in the mirror and go, hey, you going to take responsibility for this yet? You ready? Because I'm going to keep bringing it to you until you see it.
So what could they start doing then? Because as you say that, I would definitely, I don't want to generalize, but I would say no, because I would definitely see from both sides. I've seen women, I've worked with women, I've dated women that have done similar things. Like, well, who do you want me to be?
Yeah, exactly.
I'll be that person because
what do you love? I'll love it too.
Yeah, because I want to make sure that you stay with me forever, and but I've also seen it from men as well. Without
people pleasing in men is big nowadays.
Massive. Huge. So what are some things they can start to do? Like, people who are becoming aware of this, where they're starting to do things for other people that giving away their own power and not doing the things that they want. What are some practices they can start to be doing?
The biggest place to start is look at where you're resentful. Like, look at where you've got that like little bit of resentfulness, or looking at like, oh, why aren't they doing X, Y, and Z? Or that covert expectation, like, he should be doing this. He should be calling me. All of that is an indicator for a woman to go, okay, or a man, to go, I am actually not asking for what I need, setting a boundary, creating clear expectations, and having clear communication. If I'm not having myself in that way, I'm going to be mad at someone else for not having me. And then again, we're just going to keep attracting that. So biggest thing I always ask women to do, or men, look at where you're most resentful and ask yourself, what are you mad about? What do you wish they were doing? And then go, okay, so is there a need attached to that? So for instance, if I'm mad that the house is never clean when I come home, or there's always stuff left on the floor, right? That's a big one with couples. Like, oh, there's always socks on the floor or whatever. And if I'm not saying anything, but I'm resentful and I'm looking at it, and then I look at my partner and I've got that little crunchiness in our next conversation, that's an indicator that I have a desire, maybe a request, maybe a need to have you pick up your things. And if I'm not willing to communicate that and have my own back to say I am worthy enough of at least being heard, you don't have to agree to my request, but if I'm not worthy enough of at least being heard, I am then telling myself unconsciously I am not worthy of having what I desire, and I'm just going to keep attracting the same thing over and over again. This is what happened with P and I. We're both playing that game unconsciously. All these little resentments were getting stuffed under the rug unconsciously, until one day they became so loud that they were screaming at us, and we said, okay, clearly I could make this about you. I could easily look at him and say, you're not doing this, you're not doing that, and he could do the same thing to me. You're not doing this, you're not doing this. And we'd have all the evidence of why we're right. But that doesn't get us anywhere. We know that, right? So then we looked at ourselves. Well, what is this a reflection of within ourselves? I haven't been willing to actually ask for with clear requests. Here's what I need. Here's how I need it. Would you be willing to meet that? Versus having covert expectations that when he doesn't meet them, he doesn't even know what they are.
Yeah.
I set him up to fail.
Yeah, that's probably one of the biggest things, just the breakdown of all communication, not just relationships, but leadership, everything, the expectations.
Huge.
Like every single time I work with anyone in a conflict of, conflict resolution between two people, if they're in a relationship or not, nearly every single time it comes down to, well, this didn't happen. Okay, did you explain that happened? They should just know.
Right. No.
How the fuck do they just know that?
How?
Like, you give them a manual?
Right.
Like, and...
most of us don't even know about ourselves. We can't expect somebody else to know about ourselves.
But like, I even do it a lot. Like when I'm with my team, I'm like thinking, but naturally, like how I sort of get myself around this, I'll do my best, not all the time, maybe 95% of the time. Whatever the second thought is, I go with that one.
Yeah.
Because usually, sometimes I'm still bad. Sometimes I'm, what the fuck?
Yeah. Why did you do the thing?
It comes out, or I'm halfway through a message, delete.
Yeah.
delete.
We're going to start that over.
But the second one is, usually not fueled by emotion.
Yeah.
It's usually a little bit more chilled, but even a lot of time I'm like, why'd that happen? And I will literally find myself saying, well, Morgan, did you tell them?
Yeah.
No, but why can't they just think like me?
Right.
Well, because they're not you.
Right. Because they can't.
And I always get really pissed off 2 times whenever there's a problem, especially in the business. One time because there's a problem.
Yeah.
I'm like, rah! And second time because I know I create the problem.
100%. I love that you said that. Like, honestly, the people pleasers, anyone who's listening to this who's resonating, if you start working on this, you will start becoming such a better leader in your business.
Yeah.
Because the clarity of like, I am worthy of asking for exactly what I want, how I want it. Mm-hmm. And if the expectations are so clear, someone can win.
Yeah.
Your team's going to get so much better. And the better they get, the more you're able to grow and scale everything, including your money, including your love, including your intimacy. Like everything scales when you're really clear about what you want and you set people up to win.
Because one of the, I was reading this book the other day, there's 5 breakdowns or 5 traps of the CEO. One of them is the need to be liked by everybody.
Yes.
And sometimes I have conversations, we have 4 different companies, so we have a lot of staff, and some of them I really like, and some of them is like, and yesterday I was just checking myself, I'm like, could you have said that nice? I'm like, yeah, sure, but I'm like, but I also, I'm not, like I'm running a fucking business.
Right.
Like if they like me,
yeah,
great. If they don't, great.
Yeah.
If they want to work here, great. If they don't, great.
Yeah, they're not your friends, they're your employees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's having the idea of being like we definitely have a pretty loving culture. Like everyone really gets along. We definitely pick people really well. But it's the, Wayne Dyer said, he's like, when I step on stage, I want the approval.
Yeah.
He's like, I want to have a standing ovation. I want the applause, but I don't need it.
That.
And that is the difference. Like when I get on stage, I like people DMing me being like, I listened to this podcast, changed my life. I came to this event, changed my life. I love this. I like it, sure. Yeah. But I don't wake up needing it.
And that's the big distinction is if you're able to self-source that hole, right? Because that's the, if I have this, then it'll fill the hole. Mm-hmm. If I have the money, then it'll fill the hole. If I have the love, then it'll fill the hole. If I have the notoriety and recognition and social media followers and all the things, it'll fill the hole. But if you go to work on actually filling the hole within yourself and you learn how to self-source safety, approval, worthiness, love, and trust, you become a weapon in the world because you can't be bought.
Yeah.
You can't be bought. And that is a place of being indestructible because then you start moving from the true self. The true self goes, what do we want to create today? How do we want to play? And that is a really cool place to live from because the true self doesn't need validation, doesn't need approval, doesn't even need safety because it's self-sourced. And when we move from that place, our businesses become unstoppable. Our love becomes so expansive because we don't need it. We decide to play with it, and it becomes art.
I realized, I think I spoke about this in our last interview, I can't remember, but when I went through my last breakup, so I'm coming up 4 years now with Simona.
Wow.
And when I went through my last breakup, I was like, okay, I'm single again, and I was dating women, I was enjoying it. And then this went on for like 6, 7, 8 months, something like this. And it kind of hit the point where I'm like, okay, I was on a date with a woman and I'm just thinking in my head, we'll go sleep together when we get home.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, and then what? I'm like, well, yeah, then who will be next week?
Right.
And I started to really, because I was a lot of self-reflection. I'm like, so what are you really looking for? What are you really looking for? And the first I was like, I'm enjoying life. Yeah. Okay, sure, if you enjoy life. The next one was, well, I like when they come over, because we lived in like a $4 million mansion on the water. And we had these, I remember I had a check on the wall. I got like $100,000 check once from our house business on the fucking wall. And there's awards and shit and like big dick swinging when you get in this house, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I like the reaction when I bring women around and they're like, wow, this is your place and all these things. Yeah. And I liked all of the things literally everything leading up to sex.
Yeah.
Once sex began, I was like, that's the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, like maybe like
I could do without it.
One and every now and then was like a crazy freak, but it's like, it's the exact same. Right. And so I started to be curious of that. I'm like, okay, then I started to strip things back. I'm like, okay, can I just date women just for flirting and enjoying without having to sleep with them? Okay, I did that. And I was like, actually, so literally the main thing was I'm just wanting a woman to say, wow, you're so amazing, Morgan.
So impressive.
And I was like, oh, that's a problem now.
Yeah.
But the craziest thing happened was when I became aware of that and I stopped it. But then you know what happened? I remember it was a Friday night and usually that was my designated date night. Yeah. And this night I'm like, I just want to watch a movie. Yeah. I was living in like this penthouse. We're in the sky. It was beautiful. Like the movie night was amazing. I'm like, I'm watching the movie night by myself. Yeah. Movie started and this woman that I've been seeing a couple of times messaged me. Hey, I'm in the area. Let's go get dinner. And I'm like, oh, fuck me. And then the pressure of being a guy came and I'm like, well, I should do that. Because you don't turn down a hot babe who's saying, come out and meet me now.
On a Friday night.
And I'm like, nah, but I said I want to watch a movie. Yeah. So Morgan said he wants to watch a movie with Morgan. Yeah. I'm not giving up what he wanted because you're here now. Right. And I said no. And then literally as soon as I put my phone down, I got a better feeling in myself of satisfaction from that than what I did ever from dating women and all the things that say.
That's what it means to have yourself and have your own back.
Yeah.
I love that because that too, like if you think about it from an energetics perspective, right? Like you were split, right? The personality was like, ooh, I could have sex tonight with somebody who's hot, who I know I have fun with. Like that sounds good, right? Split. But sitting home and actually like being with myself tonight, that sounds really good.
And doing the thing I said I want to do for Morgan.
I said, I want to do this. I set myself up to win. I already started and I'm right about to go in. Do I betray myself in this moment? And you said no to a really good opportunity, right? A really good offer for the personality. You said no for the true self. Now that split energy comes back and it's like your whole self is here. So from a quantum perspective, or what we call somatic dignity, the field of your body has collected all of its energy. You're back in your wholeness, your totality. That is a beacon that radiates out. Here's who I am in my fullness when I have myself. That type of person attracts a whole different type of life. Yeah. How often after that realization did you meet your new partner?
It was within a couple months. Yeah. Actually, yeah. Because I can't remember it was within a couple months. Okay. But what's even crazier is it wasn't just a relationship. This was towards the end of whatever year that was. And within 6 months of that and really being aware of these things and really getting really clear on, I felt more powerful when I said no to things. Yeah. And I started making a shitload more money.
100%.
Yeah. So I think my biggest month around that time was about 18 grand. Yeah. And then I remember, this was about October, February, we did, I think, about 168.
Yeah, wow.
So it wasn't just a little, it was like a shit ton more. It was nearly 10 times more.
And that's the thing, people could talk about like quantum leaps. Yeah. That's how you do it, is you have to collect all your energy back. Yeah. You know, and so many of us are so split because we're living like half from personality, or most of us, 90% from personality and like 10% from soul and truth. But if you live from 100% soul and truth, amplified. Yeah. The signal gets so amplified.
What do you think about so before I impose what I think, I want to hear what you think. Yeah. The healing community.
Yeah, yeah.
when people are on their healing journey,
Yeah.
I guess what's your perspective of this?
I can already feel
Before I
your
tell you,
opinion on
because
this.
I'm, it's big here. All I'm saying is like, if you're a healer,
Yeah.
like not like a doing healing, but if you're doing my healing,
Yeah.
there is a community for you.
Yeah.
But, and I've been through a part of my life where I would literally say, fuck, I'm on a healing journey, but I did it with the intention of when will it end?
Yeah.
So what's your perspective on that?
Well, I think I would shift the wording because I think language is really important. We're linguistic beings. And when I say I'm on a healing journey, I'm unconsciously telling myself I'm not whole, right? I believe we're fundamentally all whole. We're all whole, but we're just living from personality self versus the whole self. So to me, it's a journey on coming back into my wholeness that I already am. I'm already here. It's emergent, right? So Preston and I, when we first started this work, we called our work the Emergent Wisdom Movement because it's emergent. It's already within. It's here. I don't need anything external to get that out of me or to put something in me. It's already here. The question is, am I allowing it to be here? Am I getting out of my own way, out of the way of the personality to come back to my wholeness? So that's what I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting thing. So I often make a bit of a joke to the whole community, really, because I see a lot of people fall victim to that, where I'm healing. I'm on a healing journey. Like I literally know people here who live here in this town. They've been on a healing journey for the last 4 years.
Yeah.
And, you know, they didn't lose their whole family to a fiery plane crash.
Right.
Maybe they had a breakup or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I remember when I went through my last breakup, and that was the first time where I actually say, there's some shit I really haven't figured out. Like I figured out a lot of the head stuff.
Yeah.
Then I was like, there's a lot of this like emotional body stuff that like I kind of did some.
Yeah.
I was like, there's definitely, this is my next thing I get to unravel.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for the first time in my life, it made sense when I said, I'm actually emotionally unavailable at the moment.
Yeah.
But I remember I was talking to my mentor, I think, you know, David Wood.
Yeah.
And we're talking at that time. He goes, how long are you getting mourn for?
Yeah.
And I'm like, and I just bring everything back to that. Like healing is a very, very, very important part of any grieving process, if anything.
Yeah.
And I always just ask myself that if there's a process of going through some sort of transformation, how long am I committed to mourning for? And I think when I first said that, I was like, okay, a month. I did the month and I'm like, I fucking need longer than a month.
I'm going to need a little more time than that.
But it's the self responsibility piece of this.
Yeah.
Because what I see people do in this space is they then become a victim. So then what happens is they connect with other people who are also healing.
Yeah.
They trauma bond with other people. Then they'll create the identity of, well, I'm broken.
Yeah.
I'm screwed. I need to be healed.
Yeah.
Therefore, if I ever actually am healed, I'm abandoned them because I don't fit in with these people.
100%.
And then who am I? Oh, fuck. So I'll create my next problem so I can heal
Stay
again.
in the drama triangle of I'll be the victim, someone's the villain, my ex-partner, my parents, the person who did me wrong. I'll have the hero, the guru that I pay all the money to tell me what's wrong with me. And we'll stay in this dance and we'll stay in this dance. And it is really disempowering.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't believe, and I do think we have to have a shift in the industry for coaching and personal development, because a lot of coaches have taken on the hero role. It's like, I've got all the answers. And it's like, no, you have all the answers. I'm going to just give you some frameworks and I'm going to put some mirrors up in this really cool way for you to see yourself and to see how fucking powerful you are, because you are that powerful. That's why I love somatic work, because it's all like, come back to your body. Your body's going to tell you. Your body knows what to do. I'm not your body. I can't tell you, but your body can. But we don't have relationships with our bodies, right? We've been living up here for so long in our brains that we forgot that we have this body. And to your point with grieving, like when Preston and I were in that process of considering divorce, I went through a huge grieving process. And when we grieve, we don't just grieve what we're grieving in that moment. We'll often grieve anything that's been unfelt.
Unresolved, yeah.
Right, unresolved. It's like, oh, cool, there's an
A
opening.
whole bag of shit.
Right? Like, great, we can feel now. So I actually think, because like during that grieving process, I also had some of my highest highs. Like I was so attuned to what it meant to be alive. You know, like I was so the veil was so thin at that moment because I was just so open and receptive. And so I would say to anyone who is feeling like you're in a process right now of like feeling the feels, don't get stuck in one feeling. We're feeling beings, and feeling can shift very rapidly from one feeling, like a feeling of deep grief and sorrow, to if you're actually allowing it to fully complete itself, you may be in the highest heights of joy 90 seconds later. So I just invite that for people, because I think oftentimes we think we're going to get stuck somewhere, and a lot of people do get stuck. They get stuck in anger, they get stuck in sadness, or they get stuck in any one of these emotions, but that means you're not allowing it to just have the wave. Waves move. Let the wave crash, and then stillness. And then another wave comes. What's that wave? Maybe it's joy. Maybe it's pleasure. Maybe it's aliveness. And then that crashes. Then another one comes. Let the waves do the wave thing. That's what feelings are meant to do, is wave through us. But we just block them off and chop them off. And then when they come, we're like, we hold on to it. We're like, oh my God, I'm so sad. I've been sad for 10 years. But is that true? Have you actually been sad? Or are you just holding on to the story of sad and what that looks like?
I love it. It's been so good hanging out with you again.
Yeah, same. As
are you
always.
guys going to come annually? Is this a thing now, or what do you guys do?
It is. I mean, we used to come a lot more when we didn't have a basketball team for children.
How old's the smallest?
He just turned 3, like 2 weeks
Can they
ago.
fly, or it's a pretty big distance?
It's a big trip for them. I don't think we're going to bring them here yet, but again, we're training people up, and we're working on a whole thing. We'll be out here at least once a year, I think. So
amazing.
We'll do this again soon.
Absolutely. So where can everybody find you guys on social media, and especially you, and see all the things you're doing? And so you got to have a new book coming out soon. That'd be cool.
Yeah. I might have a couple. So that's a whole other story. But at Alexi Panos on Instagram, YouTube, all the places, alexipanos.com, bridgeexperience.com to come to our workshops and learn about your body. And then check out my husband, prestonsmiles.com as well.
I love it. So I would have asked you this last time, but you're a different person now.
I am.
So if you were to go back to your 18-year-old self and give her 30 seconds of advice, what would it be?
30 seconds of advice to my 18-year-old self. You got it, babe. Like, you can't lose. I think I might have said that on the last one, but it's so my advice. You can't lose. Like, no matter what you choose, no matter how much you fail, no matter how much you think you're in the right or in the wrong, like, it's all a win because you're alive. You're alive, and you're getting to experience what it means to be alive. Don't miss that. Like, that's the whole point. Don't miss it. Don't rush it, and don't miss it.